Hi, welcome to episode 198 of your favorite daily podcast, A Couple of Things, a podcast about things. Today's episode is with a guest, Tolu, and we are answering a listener question on how to handle being micromanaged. I'm sure that you will find it very useful and you enjoyed the episode. Let's get into it. Hi, welcome to today's episode of A Couple of Things. Today I have a guest, who I met through a community that I'm in called Her Synergy. Maybe I'll talk about it later. But yeah, hi Tolu. Please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Thanks, Ladi. Hi, my name is Tolu. I currently work as a commercial operations manager at a global mobility transport company with operations in Europe, Latin America, North America, and Africa. I also lead operations at Her Synergy that Ladi mentioned earlier. We're a community focused on empowering mid-level women in tech in the EMEA region through mentorship, networking opportunities, um, you know, aimed at career advancement and personal growth. And yeah, happy to be here with Ladi.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. But before I go into like my questions, what is a commercial
Mm-hmm.
operations manager?
Yeah, so it's a fancy word for an operations manager, but
Mm,
my specific focus is within the commercial team. So for scale ups, that's like larger companies and companies with a ridiculous amount of commercial team members, there's a need to have like an operations manager that just ensures that all processes are being, um, monitored appropriately.
mm-hmm.
Um, Systems are used appropriately, CRMs are used appropriately. Also, just looking at the processes we have on the team and seeing what we can improve on, areas of improvement. So yeah, it's just like a fancy word for an operations manager,
Mm-hmm.
but with your function in the
Focuses on
commercial
the
team.
commercial team. That's very
Yeah.
interesting. Cool. So, well, I was going to say I'm going to start off my questions, but I already started off my question. But my normal starting off question is, what's on your mind today? So, what's on your mind
Um,
today?
yeah, so I don't want to say work because that's like a boring answer, but yeah,
If that's
work
it,
and the
is
fact that
it?
no, and I think I'm just excited about the fact that it's Friday. Um,
Yes, it's
yeah,
Friday.
there's this show I'm watching on Netflix called The Mole, and
Ooh, I love
the
that.
final episodes are yeah, the final episodes are out today, so I'm just excited to finish it. It's a reality TV show, but very competitive, and that's my thing. So
Yeah. I think it's
looking forward
very
to that.
interesting. I've only watched one season, and I think it was the Dutch one I watched. I watched it a very long time ago, and I don't think I even finished
Oh,
it. But it was
oh,
very
what's
intense.
the yeah, it's always very intense, very, very, it's just crazy, and I love it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so
you
for
should.
the more is basically there's like a group of people and they have to do like different tasks, but there's somebody that is planted there, hence the mole, and the person has to try
Yeah,
to make sure they don't win the money, and then people also have to try and
exactly.
figure out who the mole
With
is.
the mole
It's
is,
very,
yeah.
it's a
'Cause
lot of like,
if you have no idea or you don't have any clue about what the mole is, you're going home, right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
you're trying to figure out who the mole is while also trying to win
Win.
tasks and different challenges and whatnot.
It's very intense. It's like a very intense Big Brother.
Yeah, very intense. I mean, I don't think I won't compare it to Big Brother because like there's no
No, like,
romance.
yeah, but
People are
like,
focused on the game,
yeah,
eyes on
but
the prize kind of
it's-
thing.
I'm trying to think of like a comparable show, but the only thing I can think
Mm,
of is Big Brother.
I
It's
think
not
it's
like
still
one
Big
to
Brother.
one.
Yeah,
Like it's not like a
yeah,
direct comparison, but kind of somewhat because they
yeah,
also like stay together in different places and
yep,
they get to talk
yep.
to each other. And it also reminds me of Pressure Cooker because Pressure Cooker is a
That's the chef one,
the
right?
chef one, right? Where they're all
Yeah,
competing against each other, but also together to have one
yeah.
winner is also very intense. Hence the name
Yes,
Pressure
I
Cooker.
love that. I love that too. I love that too.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into this the reason why we're here. So to say. So
Today.
as you know, I have questions. I have people submit questions for the podcast, and I received this question quite some time ago, actually, but I didn't have the answer because I don't really have much experience with the topic, and I was thinking that and I don't know why I didn't think about this earlier. Like, if there's a question I
Mhm.
can answer, maybe there's somebody else that I know that can answer it. And
Yeah.
so I decided to reach out to my community to ask, like, does anyone have experience with this topic and would like to come and share a few words about it on the podcast? And this is a question from Fouad, and it's, what is your experience with micromanagers? Have you been micromanaged in the past, and how have you handled it? So, but before you answer, I was going to just think about like, well, I don't have any experience with micromanagers, and then I'll go and Google and see what people are saying and then come and talk about it. But it didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel really right, and it didn't feel like in the
Original.
spirit of this podcast because it's about me talking about my thoughts. So, or like whoever I have on talking about their thoughts. So, yeah. So now you can answer the question. What's the experience micromanaging? Have you been micromanaged in the past, and how have you handled it?
Yeah. I have been. I've been micromanaged in the past, although not extensively, but yeah, briefly, before I eventually navigated it. So I really hate being micromanaged. Like, I'm not even gonna say this, like, I'm going to just say it like point blank. Um, and I think it's because early in my career, my managers, always gave me autonomy to just do my work, and there was that trust that yeah, whatever I was doing, I was going to do well. And they did not have to chip in like every 2 minutes, 2 seconds to just ask, oh, what's going on with this task. So I generally just don't like being micromanaged. And my first experience with micromanagement, obviously, like I was I was I don't know the right word to use to describe my emotion or how I felt then, but I knew, oh, this can't continue. Like I need to stop this. Um, and I had to first understand why I was being micromanaged. Like, what is the reason? What is the problem? You
Yeah.
know. And one thing I realized is that micromanaging sometimes stems from the fact that your manager just does not have the understanding of what your work style is, or like you've not built that form of understanding between both of you. Um, and it really just takes a call, like a call to understand how you like to work, how you like to be communicated to, how you like to communicate, how you like to deliver on tasks, or inform your managers of your progress and things like that. And I discovered that with the manager then, who was micromanaging me, we did not have this conversation. And that was where the issue started from, right?
Hmm.
And also the fact that my role was a new role in the company. So I'm guessing they also did not know how to navigate that role. Like they did not know how to navigate such a role, keeping up with progress, keeping up with deliverables. It was all new to them, right? And I'm trying to use them so that it's just like
Yeah. I
very
get it.
responsible. Yeah. So when I discovered that I was being micromanaged, I'm like, oh wow. Me? um and I knew I had to have that conversation, right? Um so I just brought it up in one of our one-on-ones, or um how am I currently doing? How's my performance at the moment? And what can we change? So I like to throw it out there to people, like what can we change, what can we improve on before I then give my feedback. Because especially when I have a lot to say, like go first, let's hear you, then I can go. Um, so we had the conversation, and they also mentioned before I had even said anything that, oh, they like to receive updates, like frequent updates on tasks. And they already discovered that I like autonomy. I like to just do my thing. And once I'm done with that task, I send it to you. Especially because that's how I've always been working, and that's the sort of environment I grew up in.
Yeah.
Why am I saying grew up? But like I
Well, you grew
started
up
working in
professionally in.
exactly, exactly. Um, so I understood immediately where it was coming from, right?
Mm.
Where that micromanaging was coming from. Um, and they also mentioned that, yeah, just updates here and there. So like every day I'm giving updates every 3, 4 hours just to be sure that I'm working. And I think it's also an issue that we see in remote work where it's like
Yeah.
your manager is not, there to work with you, especially when we work in like two different continents. So you can imagine how crazy it can be. Um, so your manager is not there to work with you. Your manager is not there to see what you're doing, which is quite absurd, but I guess, yeah. Um, so the sort of trust or autonomy to do what you're doing is sort of missing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was how I just like I took it well, and made it clear as well that see, I'm not going to be giving you updates like every 2 hours, 3 hours on my work because it also like distracts me from what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think the first thing is you need to establish trust in my work and my deliverables and my outputs. Um, and from there, I can also like let's meet in the middle, right? You want updates. I don't want to be giving you updates frequently. We can make it work. And yeah, we just found a middle spot, and it's been I think ever since then I've not had such an experience with any of my managers.
Mm.
Um, because again, early on, I like to have that conversation. How do you work? How do you like to get updates? How do you like to get progress on tasks? Do you like one-on-ones every 2, 3 days? Do you like one-on-ones every and when I say one-on-ones, I mean like the weekly one-on-ones, not the
Yeah.
performance reviews or what. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also don't like a lot of meetings, so I'm not the type to have like 2, 3 one-on-ones in a week. Honestly, like one is okay. So having that conversation first, kind of, it just stops it removes the need to want to micromanage your direct reports. Yeah, that's sort of been my experience. I can delve deeper as we continue in conversation.
Yeah. So just to say if I got everything you said. So there's a situation where this is a new role, it's a new experience, and the expectations were not like properly set also like, oh, how do you want to be
Mm,
communicated with and what do you want to know and all of those kinds of things. So having that
yeah.
conversation really took you from that point where your manager wants to know what you're doing every 2 hours to like
Yes.
regular update at
Yes.
a more reasonable frequency, giving updates so that they can
Exactly.
be assured that, oh, you're actually working and getting stuff done, right? And
Exactly.
that's finding that middle ground between every 2 hours. No,
Yeah, because
exactly.
you need to
That's
actually find that you need to find that middle ground. It's see, as I'm saying, it's quite absurd. Like, why do you want? And I also don't. I think most micromanagers don't know that it's counterintuitive because honestly, the time you spend checking up every 2 hours, like you're getting stuff done. No? The time you spend, trying to get updates from me, you're literally getting other things done.
yeah.
And it also doesn't help me grow as a person or whoever your direct report is grow as a person. This is to the micromanagers out there. Um, if you like to, so micromanagers are kind of people that they don't how would I describe them? They don't feel you can do the work as well as they'll do it. That's
Hmm.
just how to put it. Right. And it's reasonable. I mean, especially if the person is new, and maybe the person has just not been performing well, you feel the need to always chime in here and there. But at the end of the day, the person isn't growing. Your direct report isn't growing. So you
Yeah,
have to do the
because you're
thing
just,
every
yeah,
single
every
time.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you have to do this
micromanaging
every
actually makes
single
their
time.
own work also harder because they're
Exactly.
just,
It's
they
also
always have to be hands on.
exactly. It's one thing I don't get because if I'm doing something, I'm trying to think of ways that I'll make my life better.
Yeah, and
How can I make
easier.
this easier for myself? But you're just compounding your problem because okay, you have a direct report that isn't performing well or isn't fast, the speed isn't there, and you think, wow, the best way is to micromanage. Like it just creates more problem because the person one won't be able to take initiative when they need to take initiative because they rely
Yeah,
on you to always give them feedback or always tell them what to do.
yeah.
Two, the time you spend, trying to tell them to do this, do that, you're getting other stuff done,
Hmm.
right? So at the end of the day, it's very like it's not working.
And then it can also cause
So
anxiety for the person, especially when like it's a new role, it's a new
yeah,
experience and
yeah,
everything. And then
yeah,
you feel like your manager does not trust you, which can also like
which is bad.
dampen your own abilities. Exactly. Like you may
Yeah,
not want
it's just bad.
to try new things or explore or be creative in your work or anything. You just want
Exactly.
to, and that's not really a great place to be in. And I do like when you were talking, I actually remember that I had a similar experience to this, and I didn't think about it. I guess I didn't think it was micromanaging because it came out of the blue. It wasn't like that before. And then all of a sudden my manager
Mm.
wanted me to give him, well, I've only had bill managers my whole career, except once. So it's fine. I've only had bill. There's only one time I didn't
Not
have a
to
bill
call it to
manager. So him, my manager wanted me to give him updates morning and evening every day. And I was so
Mhm.
confused because like we weren't working like that before, and I was
Mm.
doing my work. It was like I was suddenly underperforming or anything. It just came out of the blue, and now looking back, I guess that I should have had that conversation. Like, is everything okay?
Mm.
Why this sudden
Yeah.
like desire
In
to
the
know
most professional way, is
my
everything
exactly
okay?
like why do you want to know when I wake up and when I sleep every day now from nowhere, like all of a
Mm.
sudden.
Mm.
But looking back, if I think about it now, I think because he eventually was the one who said I should stop doing it. I think what was
Mm.
happening was that thing is like we're in different places. Um and there's that feel like, is this babe actually working or is she just faffing around?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was that. And when he said I was not faffing around, then it was like, okay, stop. Even when he told me to stop, I kept sending him for a couple of
Yeah.
weeks. And then he was like, no, really stop.
Like it's fine.
So yeah, definitely like setting the expectation and understanding where they're coming from. Which is not to say that everybody is reasonable, because sometimes we just have an unreasonable manager.
Oh yes. Oh yes, definitely.
Hi, thanks for listening so far. Just to pop in to say, please send me questions. I'm running out of things to talk about, so send me questions or suggestions. The link to do that is in the description box of the episode. Also, subscribe. Thanks. Okay, let's get back into the episode.
I mean,
And
so the thing is, with this kind of situation, you have to do the reasonable thing first before you
yeah,
then go. Like, let's have that conversation. Something is obviously wrong somewhere.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So let's have that conversation. And if the conversation doesn't, yield anything, then I mean, you take the next step. I won't mention what the next step is, but yeah.
but yeah, because like something that I find I try to be careful about when giving advice or talking about things like this is that like
Mm,
while operating on the assumption that like the situation is the same for the person that we're giving
yeah,
advice to, or the
yeah.
person whoever is like trying to figure out how to handle the situation. But sometimes
Mm-hmm.
like the context of it might be different because maybe you're actually dealing with an unreasonable person. So yeah, you do the reasonable
Yeah.
thing first, you have the conversation, you do the thing, you take the steps, but some people are just weird. So
Yeah.
so yeah, but this is what worked for us, what we did. It may work for you, may not
Yes.
work for you, but you can try it out if you're dealing with the micromanager. So if it's basically to understand where the need to micromanage is coming from. Because maybe that they don't
Yes.
trust that you're doing your work, or they don't trust your performance and all of those things. And so it's like,
Yeah.
how can we make it so that you trust that I'm working, or you trust that I can get this thing done, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, I feel like something that just came to my mind, like somebody can try to do is that now sit down with the manager and be like, here are the cons of micromanaging. Please don't do that.
So another thing I would probably advise to do, or something that worked for me, is so because I work in ops, like in operations, there's a lot of things that you're working on. Like you're doing a lot of things. It's not like a structure that maybe like working in engineering where you're just maybe coding or you're working on a product. Operations, you're like everywhere. You're doing a
Yeah.
lot of things, right? And sometimes your manager probably doesn't know what you're working on at the moment.
Mm.
So what I do is I always have like a board. So I have my tracker. Again, for operations, it's not as set in stone as other roles because like other roles, you have KPIs, you have OKRs. Operations, your OKR can come up tomorrow. Like you could go to bed today, you think everything is okay, and then you wake up tomorrow and like 5 bridges are burning in the company, and you have to, go sort it out. So for operations, you have to have like a tracker or a board. Maybe not have to have, but it's something that has worked for me
Yeah.
throughout my operations, career. And it's something I always like advise. Even my manager, like my current manager has said it many times, like they really like the fact that I have that board. So sometimes when they're even confused, like, oh, what's Tolu working on at the moment? They go to my board, they see what I'm working on, they see the progress of my tasks. Like I have like subsets, subtasks,
Yeah.
everything is broken down. And then
Yeah.
I add like links, if there's a document to be attached, I attach the document. If there's a link to be linked in the board, I link it to the board. So you see everything. So it removes that sort of need to, message me and say, oh, Tolu, what are you working on today? Oh, what
Yeah.
did you do yesterday? It's on the board.
So proactively
Timelines
doing the
on the board.
work, right? Like being proactive
Exactly,
about
exactly. So it's like
when.
you need to also make your work visible. You need to make what you're working on as visible as possible.
Yeah.
Oh, few rhymes. But you need to make it as visible so that everybody can see what you're working on, and there's the need to say, oh, what are you doing today? What are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah.
It just eradicates that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good point, and it goes back like preempting the quote unquote needs. Like your manager needs to know that you're working and that you're not just working on rubbish, but you're actually
Mm-hmm.
doing things that matter.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think whatever tool you guys use, if you use um Trello or Asana or Monday or whatever, just use
Mm-hmm.
that. You don't need to go and create a new tool or sign up for a new thing. Just use what you
No,
already use
yeah,
locally. You can
use
even be a
that.
Google
Yeah.
Doc or Google Sheet, or if you use Microsoft's, kudos to you. You can also put it in there. But just make sure that the person or the people that you're working with are informed and always up to date. So all
Yeah.
those fears are allayed. I also want to say though that oftentimes people say that, oh, it's because of remote work, and then the managers are like not there, they can't see you, blah blah blah, so you feel like you're not working. I've also seen
Yeah.
like people talk about when they're in situations where they work in an office, like they go to the office every day, even pre-COVID and even now post-COVID, or post lockdowns. Um,
Mhm.
People that work in offices with their managers also still complain about being micromanaged. So in
So,
that
so,
case,
so I want to understand how that works. Like, what's going to happen? So your manager comes to your back and say, "Oh, Lade,
yeah, I've heard
what are you
about things
working
like
on?"
that. Like the manager is like hovering around on your computer, like looking at, like trying to see what you're doing. It's quite insane to me. It's like you're doing exam and invigilator is trying to check to be sure that you're not
Yeah.
cheating. I'm just like, and the thing that also confuses me is that, is the manager not working? Why do they think you are not working?
That's my issue. I mentioned like micromanaging. I really need to understand. So it's very interesting, to be honest. Like, for lack of a better word, it's very interesting because the time you are spending doing all this, you can travel and come back, and you still miss. Like, there are other things that you could spend time on, but you choose to spend it micromanaging. Like, and I think it's also a thing of they don't know better.
Mm,
I'd like to think that, like,
yeah.
I'd like to think that they don't know better, which is why sometimes when you have that conversation, you let them realize what they are missing out on, like the good part of life, which is not micromanaging.
Yeah.
Um, because sometimes maybe they don't know better. Maybe they don't know, oh, there are better ways to do this. Maybe they don't know, oh, I don't need to do this. It's maybe it's something they're just used to, and they
Yeah.
don't know how to, navigate that. So I like
Yeah.
to give them benefit of the doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well. And I think it's also that thing of like something I'm also trying to learn how to do in every sphere of my life really is to extend grace to other people. And so that's like trying
Mm-hmm.
to understand, okay, why could this person be behaving in this way? Maybe they were not a micromanager before, and the person that they were managing did rubbish and messed them up somewhere, and is a trauma response,
Mm-hmm.
like the kids say.
Yes, yes,
So
yes. It's actually very like possible.
So
I'm not
it's
even
like just trying
joking.
to
It's
understand where they're
possible.
coming from and respond to whatever need that is driving that behavior, and try to like find a solution that works for everybody. But yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. That was it. Do you have anything else you want to add? Anything you want to leave the people with?
I think that's it, to be honest. I also need to mention that when you're having that conversation or when you're preparing to have that conversation, you also need to be prepared because there's going to be pushback. There's going to
Mm.
be, oh, what do you think is better? Or why do you think it's not good? Or this is what is good, this is what is
Well, this
best.
is how I've
So you
always
have
done it.
to exactly. So you need to prepare yourself. You can't just go to conversation and say, oh, don't micromanage me again. They'll say, okay, I won't. It's not going to work. It's not going to work like that. So you also need to be prepared. Mm,
Yeah, I think that's a
maybe
good
have like
point.
points ready. Speak to somebody. Sometimes maybe
Yeah.
you also need to speak to somebody like a friend. Okay, this is what is going on. This is how I want to approach it. What do you think? You know. So
Don't
you
talk to
always
your
have to be
friend that
prepared.
likes fighting.
If it comes to me, don't, if it comes to me, the point I would give you. So I also, I mean, corporate is different. Like it's
Yeah.
different from having conversations with your friend or your family
Yeah.
member. It's like very different. You have to be strategic. You have to be reasonable around it. You can't just
Yeah.
go bass and expect. So you have to be very reasonable. You have to have like facts
Yeah.
down because you're not going by just feelings. Oh, I feel that. Oh, this is how it feel. This is how it makes me feel. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people don't want to get. Oh, okay, so your feelings. I also don't feel great. So how about that? So you need to you need to go with like facts.
Yeah.
Also possible solutions, possible alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
This way you're able to convince them to stop micromanaging you. And honestly, after the conversation, the next few weeks would be like a trial because they're trying to see if what you
If it
propose is
work,
working.
exactly.
Yeah, and you
So
are
you too,
also
you
trying
need
to see
to
if it's
be on
working
your
for you.
10 toes.
Exactly, exactly. There's a reason they're micromanaging. There's always a
Yeah.
reason. It's not like, I mean, I don't think they hate you. I hope they
I
don't.
hope not.
But there's always there's always a reason, and you need to find out that reason and come up with like facts or things that other alternatives that could be better as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so I think in a good way to summarize all of this is one to understand. The first thing to do is to understand like why is my manager micromanaging, what are his concerns or her concerns and his or her fears and all of those things. And then two, you need to clarify the expectations. What do they expect of you? What do they want to see? All of those things. And then you ask them questions like, how am I doing? What do you think of my performance so far? What can I improve? What can we change? And then based on all of
Mm-hmm.
those things, and even before you arrive at before you go into that meeting, you have to have all your notes and ideas and
Yeah.
thoughts
Yep.
somewhere
Yep.
already. And then you can then start making suggestions like, how about we try this? Like what you said, instead of sending an update every 2 hours, we can do it every other day or every day to start with, and then
Yeah.
reducing frequency from there. So
Yeah.
definitely, if you have a friend who is a manager, that would also be a good person to like ask for advice,
Mm-hmm.
because they are in a
Mm-hmm.
manager's position and they can kind of give you insight into what your manager could be thinking, and all of that. But yeah, thank you for listening. That's it. If you like to connect with Tolu, you can connect with her on LinkedIn. A link will be in the show notes. Thank you for listening to today's episode of A Couple of Things. If there was anything you found interesting or insightful, or you enjoyed the episode, please do share to someone or multiple people. Like, leave a comment, and definitely do subscribe and all the nice things. Bye.